Hello and good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us for tonight's talk on cards, dice, and Lego bricks by Shaun Tay, an educator at Republic Polytechnic and the Exco member for education in SGGA. This is our third talk for Global Game Jam Singapore 2024, organized by Kueh 22. Shaun has 15 years of experience as an educator in game design, game-based learning, and gamification at Republic Polytechnic, teaching classes such as game theory, board and card game design, 2D art asset creation, and art history. And he specializes in applied teaching and learning and has practiced academic research in gamification. He believes that compelling play experiences are the key towards elevating modern education. All right, Shaun, would you like to take over now?
Hi, thanks for the introduction, JT. Hi everyone. Welcome to my little talk. It's called Cards, Dice, and Lego Bricks. I hope everyone can hear me all right. Can you just make sure can get a thumbs up so that I know that I'm broadcasting well. Awesome. Thank you. Okay. So thanks for the introduction again. This is me. Uh, my name is Sean. Polytechnic. I've been teaching for over a decade and a half. It's been a while. I'm not revealing my age anytime with that, I hope. I also volunteer at Exco for education in the Singapore Games Association. Been doing that for well over, I think, 2 years now. And I also work with JT with the Sagakaya Collective, and we advocate games as an art form. So that's a little bit of what I do in a nutshell. But what I really do is I make games. I talk about games. I live and breathe it. It's in my blood. What you see over here are some of the things that I've done. I've done a bit of games research, as well as presented some of the stuff I've done in EduTech Asia recently. But I also play more games than I would care to admit. Uh, Currently, it's playing Magic Gathering for the longest time, trying to complete Zelda, advocate for Critical Role. If you haven't seen it, go watch it. If you have, we'll talk for hours on end. But that's what I do in a nutshell. But my talk today is a little bit more geared towards the game jam. And with any game jam, I imagine there will be a theme. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And how we can, as a jammer, what you can possibly do to make it more meaningful for you when you're making the games. So GGJ is next week, and I'm so looking forward to the inspiring works that everybody here will create. And with that, I hope that you'll be inspired by the world around you as you look at the theme. So some of these are approaches that you can take to unlock what you can possibly decode the theme to be, as you're making meaning out of it. And a lot of it is really to have a good discussion with your team members or even with the other jammers to see how you can uh, distill down to what the theme can possibly mean, because usually there's so many interpretations, right? So hopefully you have a bard in your group that will inspire you, or look to other games that you're playing that this is interesting mechanic, we can do this. So look for the unique angles about it, see how you can approach it from different perspectives, different lenses. And a lot of the times, some of the best games I've played from GGJs in over the years is when people incorporate their personal experiences into it, right? When you have your own personal slant, what is your ideal flavor that you can introduce into your own work? Um, how does that translate into making that connection with the theme? So a lot of the times when you have meaningful games that are created from game jams, it's revolving around what little bit of yourself you can instill in the product that you make. As such, go play the previous GGJ games. Do so with a vengeance. See what people have created over the short span of 48 hours and how they have brought the theme to different directions. I remember one of the best games I've played are done with different mechanics, like screaming to a microphone, making it to make a character move forward or jump. All these things are very different, unique mechanics that you can introduce in your experience, that some would bring a very unique flavor to the work that you create. However, once you have done different things with what you've experimented with the theme, be ready to pivot at any time. Because sometimes you may realize across your the game jam that it may not lead into something that you want to create, or it may not work very well. That's why you need to be nimble about it and take on other forms of the theme that you have thought of previously. So pivoting is very important, especially when you have a short time frame and you're kind of experimenting with what you are creating on the fly, right? So the best thing that you can do also is to speak to other jammers. GGJ is one of those fantastic community-driven experiences where everybody is ready to jump in and share what they have created and to give you feedback on what you have done so far, right? But throughout all these processes of doing all these things, the best advice I give you when you are looking at the theme of GGJ, whichever that is throw away the first three ideas. Why? I know I've said so much about loving the theme and taking your interpretation on it and giving your own spin, but chances are a lot of times, everybody is thinking along the same lines as you are driving towards creating your own experiences, right? So you may realize that after speaking to a few people, you get very similar first knee-jerk reactions into the theme of what you want to create, but that's fine. If you find your unique slant, go ahead. My personal recommendation is after you have thought about where you want to bring your ideas forward, see how you can make it better by adjusting or taking in what other people have talked about, and like I said, pivot to see how you can adjust it accordingly so that you have a much more meaningful experience with GGJ. All right, so that's my little advice on that. And the other bit is prototyping, right? Prototyping is a mindset in whenever you're making games. I'm sure you guys here are not foreigners to that, not foreign to that. But it's all about trying new ideas. It's if you have new mechanics that you want to figure out, or if you're inspired by a game you've played recently, go ahead, try new things and see how you can develop an idea that supports that, right? But however, because you have a very limited time, scope it down, keep it simple, make sure that you have a good play experience that you can play off the bat, because overcomplicating it would mean stretching out your development time, and you may not necessarily be able to create what you want to do in the short time frame, because time just bleeds away really quickly. Those of you who are seasoned jammers, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So um, prototyping is not just creating things quickly, but it's also about that mindset of trying new things and experimenting, right? So try these things, see if you're really working on digital games for all this while, try pivoting, try making board and card games. Um, and always think about how you can plan out your schedule properly. So that's why you need to have a cutoff time to know, okay, by, for example, the second day, we need to nail down our design, but by 12 noon. That's the usual hard cutoff time that I have. Um, and from then on, figure out where the timeline leads to so that you can submit your work on time the following day. All right. But last but not least, for prototyping, playtest, playtest. It's all about seeing if every little notch works along the way. Um, I know it is tough to get to want to build every single thing first and see whether it works and everything makes sense. But you need to set time for this so that you know what works and what doesn't. So prototyping itself is a very important skill set to have, and having a good team member to manage the timeline is something that is really necessary to make sure you deliver your product on time. All right. So I'll move on a little bit. Oh, by the way, I absolutely love this comic I found, so I snuck it into this. Hope you like it too. Um, All right, so I promised JT that I'll talk about this, because I've been teaching a board and card game design in RP for around 15 years. So this is part of my delivery that I have to fulfill. What? How do you decide what to create with board and card games, right? What makes each medium unique, and how can you use them properly when you're prototyping play experience within a short time frame? So it's about knowing your tools well. What do dice do? What do cards do? And how do board games service a play experience, right? So, for example, the dice and cards are great when as hooks for your players because people love to roll dice and they love to draw cards. It's great for introducing all these chance-based elements into the game. For example, if it's dice-based, know what probability is and how it leads to generating a certain play experience. And there are some pros and cons to this as well, as it really depends on what you're shipping in your player experience that for the game jam, right? So know what they are best for. Dice are great for unpredictability, to get your players excited about a random event that they can somewhat plan for, and but they have to pray to the RNG gods, of course. But it's great for very simple experiences, which allows for facilitating a quick random based element. As for cards, it's something which is great for storytelling also. It's great for listing down certain stat blocks, great for alignment, for placement, for limiting your players' options. So all these are very powerful tools that you can use in the space of board and card games so that you can create certain, for example, cards are, if you, those is here, Magic the Gathering, right? It's great for placing, for tracking, whether the card is placed horizontally, vertically, on the play space in response to where your deck is, how many cards are you drawing. So all these things are tools that you have to think about as you are designing the play experience for your players. And sometimes these things are complemented with the board, where it allows for the play space to have grids or territories drawn out. Placement is important for certain play experiences. So that's where boards comes in, where it's great for spatial strategies, and it's great for listing, for helping the players visualize where certain elements can go, right? And because you have a short time frame in getting that play experience out for your players, sometimes it's great to have a play space that is outlined so your players will be able to know what goes where really well. Okay, so this is what I'm sharing with uh, the spread between dice, cards, and board games. And this is, you'll find the common tools that you will see with analog games. Um, and this is where I ask you guys, have you ever played with one of these? So can I just get a quick thumbs up if you have played with one of what you see on screen before? Awesome. So we are not foreign to the Lego brick. Brilliant. Um, So the reason why I love this is not only because I grew up with this as a kid, but being part of a game jam is exactly like building a Lego set. You have an idea you're trying to create. You have all these bits and pieces around you, and you're doing so without the instructions, right? You have a direction that you are going towards. You have a group of people around you who have a set different skill sets, and everybody brings their own set of Lego bricks to the puzzle, but no instructions included. So, uh, before the jam, here's some advice I have for you. Make a list of your skills. Know what you bring to the table. If you are coming to the jam as a team, know what your peers are bring to the table as well. How you can leverage off each other's skill sets. This is important because sometimes in the crunch, you may need to double up when you're in building the game in the last wee hour into the wee hours of the night, right? So knowing who can offload each other and rely on each other, that's always a great thing to have. Um, Talk about your goals. It's great if you have your own personal goals that, for example, like I mentioned earlier, they could be something you want to try for the first time. Or there is a tool that you want to implement in your workflow. Let your team know so that they can help accommodate for it. And exactly with that, have a session zero. So for those of you who play D&D, um, session zero is when you have a discussion with your team of what you want to have out of the play experience, what your goals are as a campaign, and what you hope to achieve, and what you bring to the table. All right. So have that conversation with everyone so that everybody is aware. And some of the important things to talk about are like things like scheduling, right? Maybe you're not available for a short window during the game jam, and your team knows and to look out for you and to cover you when you're away. So all these things are important. Um, and last but not least, before the jam, set your non-negotiables. Right. So non-negotiables are things that you must have in during the jam. All right. It could be something that you want to try for the first time, for example, um, or your absences, or a certain experience or mechanic that you want to implement in the jam, and you are keen to do so. But again, be flexible if the is some because the theme is not released yet, right? So these are the things you need to have with your team members, a conversation before you carry on. Okay. Next, during the jam. Um, I hope everybody has watched the Lego movie, and I'm not foreign. Nobody's foreign to this. Not everybody is a master builder. Not everybody is a one-man studio where you can do everything. Never bite off more you can chew, right? So that's why in a jam you got to communicate and be contactable, right? Have everybody available, know what you're getting into, um, and always ask yourselves, what does a player do when you're building the game, right? All these things are important as it helps align your expectations to what you're trying to create. And it allows you to really work towards your angle better. Okay. Um, Next, expect the unexpected. Some things will go wrong. Those of you who are again regular jammers will testify to this as well as I better than I can. There are things that will mess up along the way of development. Bugs will be everywhere, and that's fine. All right. Uh, if your team is contactable and you communicate well, I'm sure you guys will work things out. But if it doesn't work out, it's still good. All right. The jam isn't everything. You can always come back and work on the product after you're done, uh, after submission. And it's something which you need to be mindful of, especially your team leaders and producers, right? So just from experience of being in game jams before, and running game jams myself before, this is one of those things that could make or break a game project uh, uh, during the game jam, because the not players, sorry, the jammers are underprepared. So just be mindful about all these pitfalls as you are moving forward. I kind of mentioned this before. Playtest, playtest, playtest. Uh, Set uh, signpost your playtest sessions with your other jammers. Be available for others to play their games and give feedback. It's great when you can bounce ideas off and you don't know where these will lead your own game towards, which direction you may lean towards after your playtest sessions. And that feedback is very important so that you know that you're developing a product that can be completed in time, right? The worst thing you can do is to overscope, which is my next point, and you are unable to deliver a functional game by the end of the 48 hours. So scoping is very important because you need to be able to decide when you're to cut your losses if you are unable to complete the full experience first, and really deliver what you can really execute within the limited time frame. Okay. So uh, at the end of the jam, actually slightly before it, polish. Game polish is so important in a game jam. Having something that plays and feels well is important. So I would strongly recommend you save the last 6 hours to polish your play experience so that it feels nice and bouncy and juicy. Doing so will elevate the play experience, and thus it will make it more meaningful for yourselves as a developer also. Um, and all these things will go into your vast play experience if you make it feel nice and rounded and punchy, right? As opposed to you overscope it and it kind of may fall a bit flat if certain mechanics don't gel well with each other. So polish, polish, polish. That's so important. Don't fall in love with your game. I know it sounds contradicting to what I've talked about so far, but the reason for this is because, like I mentioned earlier, you may have overscoped it, and you need to cut off the feature cut at a certain point in time. So at that point of time, um, just think about what is the final product you could deliver, make that work well, and you can always come back and work on this experience again, um, post game jam, post GGJ to make it even better, right? But for the sake of finishing the product by the end of the game jam, make sure you have something that is functional and plays well, so that you can have it in in the to really upload it by the end of the jam, right? My best advice also is to upload ahead of time. As a past organizer of GJ, I've seen more than a couple of teams who have did not do so, and by the time they were trying to upload the game, they couldn't do so by the deadline, um, simply because they just couldn't make that deadline in time and didn't plan for it, right? So you can always re-upload your game, yeah, update it. Uh, Once you have a vertical slice, upload that first, and then you can revisit your team's GGJ page later on. And last but not least, uh, get feedback and give feedback. Play other jammers games, chat with them and everything. Network. You never know where you'll lead to. And give them the feedback on your play experience. What you like, what you thought they could do a little bit better if they were going to work on the game, a little bit more after the game jam, right? So this is a wonderful opportunity to get to know people. I'm sure you will forge new friendships as you are jamming with the other jammers. So this is a great opportunity, and don't pass it up, right? Uh, Last but not least, this is what you can expect. You will have a grand plan of what you can do. Um, but sometimes within that time frame, or maybe you're trying new things and your limited skill sets, that's perfectly fine. All right. You may end up with something a little shy of your projected scope, but that's still okay, because again, this is just for GGJ, and you can always go back to really polish it or introduce new mechanics into it post jam. So, to sum up, these are the things that I recommend. Play with the theme. Think about new ways to interpret it. Um, I guarantee you, again, the first few ideas that you will have, someone else across the globe will have a very similar idea. But that's fine, right? Think about how you can make it your own, look at it from different lenses, and prototype it early. Be experimental, try new things, and figure out what is the real direction for your game for your game. After the first couple of hours, don't just plunge straight into it. Think of the yellow brick. See what you bring to the table. Have that conversation with your team members, and experiment. Right. Uh, if you find that you've hit a wall and something is not working, take it apart, see what works. Introduce a different mechanic, introduce a different medium. Maybe you dice don't work, use cards to represent certain idea. And that's all part of the experience, right? It's not about trying to figure out which brick fits into which other parts that will reach your final product. Okay. Um, and I hope this resonates with you. For timing the state of mind. It is the second time I'm saying this in this one slide alone. So that's how important that is. Uh, it is not just trying new things, but it's also that mindset of going back and reiterating your ideas over and over again. And last but not least, someone I felt was very important said this to me. once before. Creating is labor of love, but don't fall in. No, don't fall in it, right? So it is not something which you will end up like creating everything well in the first. Let me rephrase that. It's not you may not arrive at the best product in your first go, and you need to be able to think about how you can push the envelope to really create a very meaningful play experience. So uh, there will be a time where you may have to throw certain parts of it out, but that's fine. You can always come back and revisit and make it better next time round, over and over again. Okay, um, that's generally it. That's what I have to share with my little talk. And I asked if there are any questions. Maybe JT, then can you let me know?
Okay, so for those who are here, feel yeah, join us on the Slido and post your questions. And Sean, you can just start answering as they come in.
I sure. I see the first one already, and I am intimidated. Yeah, I'm incorporating Magic the Gathering game mechanics or D&D into my games. Um, ye yes, I think. Um, when I'm developing, okay, I'll put it this way. When developing card games, especially, right? Some things are similar across the board. I stand by what I said that players love to draw cards, but know that drawing cards is a very powerful mechanic. So, because it affords for a lot of options, more options for the players to execute in your turns. So yeah, yes, in some form, card draw is the philosophy behind card draw in both the mechanics as well as the play experience does cuts across different games. Mm. And as for D&D, the whole idea of storytelling is real. Love to think always think about what does a player will get out of your play experience. Think about your audience, right? So when I'm dungeon mastering, if that's the actual word, I think it is. When I'm DMing, um, the the thing that I always consider is what will my players get out of the experience? What's the reveal that will make them go wow? Uh, why would a player act in a certain way, and how would they take apart uh, that what's given placed in front of them, so that they'll get more of the experience. On the flip side, players never really do whatever you expect them to do. They will always try to break your game. So that's something that we EDMs have to deal with all the time. That question. Do I answer the next one then? How often should I play test my game, especially your game jams? Great, yes. I with every key milestone, I imagine, especially when you're the first solid mechanic out, I always recommend to my students whenever they are creating a play experience, build the toy first. So the toy is the game without the final angle, right? It's the buttons that you push on a new experience to see how you will interact with it. If that's meaningful for you, you've got something that is kind of fun but not quite there yet. You know that you're kind of on the right direction. That's great. Uh, from then on, with a certain set of intervals when you're introducing the first skeleton of a level, or if you're looking at a card game with a certain mechanic, all right, if every new feature that goes in, um, protest prototype quickly, cheaply, do it dirty, just to get the experience first. You can always clean up the visuals later. And when I said polish, that's where you can throw in the revised visuals for it. So I would say within the first 2 hours of getting of building the initial prototype, you should be having your first beta session already, and regularly thereafter. Okay. Um, Next question, I imagine. How are the challenges of designing physical and digital games different? Wow. Um, it is honestly, what is your skill set like? All right. This is different from team to team, jammer to jammer. Um, if you're looking at digital games, usually the trouble is the compiling and making things work. All right. But if you're looking at physical games, you need the biggest challenge for physical games is getting your playtesters, because you're usually playtesting within your own team first, and you may have trouble getting other people who are outside of your experience to playtest your game, right? And if you're jamming offsite, chances are you're going to grab the people nearest around you to playtest your game, and know that you get different results playtesting with people who know games versus people who are not as familiar. I think that's very similar for both analog and digital games, right? I hope that answers that question. Okay. Share with us the latest game you worked on or designed. Right. The latest game I've designed is for Republic Poly actually. It's called Diplomats in Space. It's a game-based learning experience where it's played by 40 students, for every year one student in RP, and it's trading resources to meet secret objectives, and how you need to help each other out to meet those goals. If you are interested, I will share that with you later on, maybe after this. Um, but yeah, that game was designed for a large classroom. Okay. Did you have any game idea you were set to discard? Absolutely. Um, for every one game that I've made, I've probably discarded 20 ideas, or more. Um, there are there are times where after prototyping you feel that the play experience isn't what you made it out to be, or the idea falls flat after a while because your design sense evolves over time. Um, you may find that there are certain mechanics that doesn't quite gel with one with the other, or your skill set evolves over time as well, and you get a better appreciation of your craft. To be honest, I look back at some of the games I've created for GGJ before, as well as on my own time, and there are some which I think that I could have done much better now. And there are some which I do not acknowledge those are my designs. um, because your design sets evolve over time, right? So do your skills and everything else. But jokes aside, yes, uh, I there are definitely game ideas which are really set to be discarded, because of whatever reason. Usually, it's because of time, or it's because again, your design set evolves and it doesn't quite fit who you are as a creator these days. Hmm. Okay. What's your favorite type of project? Puzzles, platformers, etc. to work on for game jams, and why? Oof, very, very subjective. The reason for that is because it depends on the theme. Um, I would say I'm not bound by the medium of play. I'm not bound by the genre, bound by the theme on how we interpret uh what that theme is, right? Um, there was once there was a game jam where the theme in GGJ, the theme was the sound of a heartbeat. So we did a digital game then, and it was revolving around rhythm, and there was a board involved. But that was driven by the repetition of being needing to respond to the beat as and in anticipation of the next one, right? So it really depends on what's uh the your interpretation is at that point of time, right? So I wouldn't say that it's a type of project per se, but I would say my best advice now is to think to do a project that is um, compact and simple for the game jam, and polish that one mechanic and make that shine. I've fallen into the mistake of um, doing two or more mechanics at one time, and it didn't necessarily cause a lot of conflict, but because you're trying to polish everything and make everything feel juicy, from personal experience, it falls flat, right? So be mindful of the deadlines that is the 48 hours. Yeah. Okay. Last question, I imagine. How do you stop yourself from getting attached to your initial game ideas? Oof, good question. It's tough. Um, this is usually done when you, okay, in a game jam, set a cut-off time, right? Um, Especially when you have, for example, 12 hours left, then you know that you got to look at your vertical slice. You need to determine if you have a feature cut, to see if you can complete what you set out to do, uh, to determine if you can keep your non-negotiables, to determine if you can uh, meet what you set out to create in the first place, right? What is the core gameplay idea? What does the player do? And what do you want out of this? What should the game feel like? And by the end of the game jam, from then on, then you need to have the conversation with your team to decide if this stays or that goes. All right. Oh, we have another question. Um, is it a good idea to make small number of simple mechanics but make many levels out of it? Uh, yes and no. But generally, I'll say I would vote against making multiple levels from simple mechanics. I would say make a small number of levels, but make them good. I would rather see how a mechanic can be applied well to uh, a small number of levels, so that it shows off the design and how and creative problem solving, rather than to go through a long stretch of levels where it could come across as repetitive, um, rather than to have like I said, a long set of mechanic of levels which may not add to that play experience, right? This is where your polish comes in. This is where what I talked about of making it feel juicy and solid. Where if the best case examples I can give you are, um, for example, Mario, they make excellent levels because they have one mechanic they introduce in the beginning of the game. They allow you to try and feel with it. They take away a bit of safety net, and in the last part of the levels, usually they make you use that mechanic well. Um, that's just one example of a good game that does a good game series that does it well. As for um, I'll draw it back to board and card games as well. Um, there could be different levels, different um, challenges that you place in front of your players, but it's really about giving them the right tools to problem solve in the play experience, right? So with that, simple mechanics is fine. Um, Different but unique and meaningful levels are better. Okay, I hope I answered all those questions. That was fast and furious for me. um, are there any more questions? JT?
Yeah, I guess if there's no other questions, thank you so much, Shaun, for this evening, and thank you everyone for tuning in.
Yay. Thanks
Oh,
everyone.
yes,
That was
thanks
fun.
everyone for joining.